Welcome to another episode of the Talk It To Me podcast with your hosts, Tim Klingman and Phillip Smith. Intro and outro music by Empty Beds, emptybeds.bandcamp.com. Welcome to another episode of the Talk It To Me podcast. I'm here with a special guest host this week because Tim is on vacation.
Go Tim.
Yeah, I know he actually got out of town for once. You might be familiar with my guest host because of the fact that you hear his band's music before every episode and at the end of every episode of the show. We have with us today Michael Maxwell from Empty Beds.
Oh gosh. Yep. I am on the thing.
Yeah, you're here. You're actually... I approached you with the idea of being on a podcast of mine a year ago.
Yeah.
Something while I was really drunk. I was
Yeah, I really specifically remember that. Wow.
Yeah, I was belligerently drunk and I was like, I have an idea to do a podcast and I want to get people on it and you'd be a cool guy to have on it. And then I didn't end up, yeah. And that's...
Yeah, it didn't even feel like a year ago.
Yeah, that's crazy though. That's about when I contacted you about this before this was even a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's a thing. We're doing the podcast and it's good to have you on.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's a really good time.
So, for those of you who may not know out here that what you do, tell some people about some of the projects you work on.
Oof. Okay. I do like a billion things all the time. The main things that I guess people are vaguely aware of are the bands that I'm in, which is Empty Beds, which is my main one. And that's been a thing since 2015. But especially within the past year, I've made a billion bands that have all put out releases and done shows. So Empty Beds is it's sort of the culmination of all of it. It's just whatever we feel like doing. Lots of just random influences. Every release is a different main genre focus, I would say, so far at least. And then I put out after that, I would say the biggest, most notable thing is my band Late for Rent, which is neo psychedelic and doom, and that's a really good time. And then I have a power violence band that's influenced by sass that's called Cruel, and that put out a release 2 months ago. And then I'm in a screamo band that just put out a demo called nocapitalsnospaces, and that's my baby right now. I love that one so much. And then probably my next major band thing that I'm doing that's probably going to be my main focus other than Empty Beds is Skipper the Eye Child, which is that's so Empty Beds is my main sad band, and it's really serious and political and stuff. And then Skipper the Eye Child is fun, which is weird because
Yeah.
I make emo music most of the time, or I'm heavily what's the point of making something if it doesn't have an emotional value or a political value or something like that. And I mean, this does too still, but the music isn't sad. It's very much as being as theatrical and fun and just ridiculous as possible. And that's probably, if I'm gonna get famous, Skipper the Eye Child might be vaguely why, I would say. But it's glam punk.
Yeah.
Very, very flashy and silly and very, very queer. But it's a fun time. I love it a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting with Empty Beds because I was introduced to Empty Beds through a group we were mutually in forever ago, and I don't know, remember if you're part of the Rain compilation they did, but we were both in non-denominational emo or NDE or whatever.
Yeah. Classic.
Yeah, that's old school. That's
very much not a thing anymore.
No, people still post on there, but I don't know. That group went to hell.
Yeah, it did. It fell apart pretty fast. And it was one of the better emo groups I've ever been in, but yeah, it died. I really wanted to do more on that group, and I felt like I was moderately, like I interacted enough that I was like, some people actually knew me. Pretty sure that's how Empty Beds got on the Miss the Stars compilation. Probably. I have actually no idea how we got on that compilation at all.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Uh, yeah, that group was a trip. Like, I talk to hardly anybody on that group anymore because I've pissed everybody off that I know on that group. Like,
Rip. That seemed like a common thing for a lot of people in that group.
oh, it was like one of those things to where I'd get talking to people, and then like so many people were so hypocritical, which is it's what turned me off a lot with making music, even because a lot of
Yeah.
these artists are so it's cool that somebody's a rapist as long as they're my friend,
Yeah.
and
NDE had a lot of problems because it was sort of like there was enough people in it that were like a part of the pop punk, like the pop punk groups that sort of got into emo vaguely. So there was a lot of like sort of like protective broiness in it that was really weird. Um, but like after that, like that group and US emo and a bunch of other ones that were like moderately big sort of fell apart. There's been a couple of fringe ones that are really nice. Like I've been in the Scrams Cave for a long time, and it's perfect. I love the Scrams Cave.
well, I got started with the whole music group thing on Facebook with Twinkle Daddies, which was
Classic.
yes, this Twinkle Daddies was OG NDE. So
Yeah, true AF.
I was NDE member like 128.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
So,
crazy.
and I got on there because Craig Lindholm made a post because the fact that um oh, the main guy on Twinkle Daddies, I can't remember his name, but he used to date one of my exes, and she added me in the group. So I was like, "Oh,
What?
yeah."
That's crazy.
So but the main guy in that group, who was her boyfriend, got pissed off about a post or something that somebody posted and was like, "Go make your own group then." And then Craig Lindholm, who's a really cool guy,
Yeah,
uh,
he was super nice. I liked him.
yeah, he was like the dad of the non-denominational emo group, but
Yeah,
he made a joke, pretty much the group as a joke because of the fact that it's non-denominational,
yeah,
Christianity,
yeah.
like,
I thought that was genius.
and
Uh,
really, like, that's what influenced a lot of my music, was going into that group. Like, before, I was like hardcore folk punk kid, like that's
mhm.
all I did. Like, I
Yeah.
was Tim, who also does the podcast with me, him and I were in a folk punk band for 2 years.
Hmm.
Like, we still try to make music together, but I always get too drunk, or he pisses me off because he doesn't know how to play bass right.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
Beautiful.
yeah. Well, hey, maybe now that we got the podcast going, we can collaborate sometime, because of the fact that that was something else I talked to you about like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, same. Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
hella do things all the time.
yeah. I just, you know,
I totally remember you talking to me about folk punk like when we first became friends.
yeah. That was one of those crazy things where I was. You commented, I think, on a post that Ray Mueller made, who he used to do the UNR radio show, but I've known him since he was like 10. Like,
Oh,
I go
whoa.
way back with that kid. Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, and you commented on a post he made, and then I was like, just, my mouse hovered over your name, and it was like, also a member of non-denominational emo, and I was like, that's crazy. That's somebody in, my area that's like in this, like,
Yeah, that's why I freaked out too. I was like, wow, there are other emo people in this
yeah,
area. Ugh,
yeah, it's
classic.
it's crazy, but yeah, back to Empty Beds for a minute, because I just went on a tangent. Like, when I was looking for a theme song for this podcast, I was going through everybody I knew that owned their own music, like all my friends I knew that weren't signed to labels, that just kind of had music that I could see if anybody be like, "Oh, cool, you can use my music." And I came across Empty Beds first because I was thinking, oh, he's in the area. I'll go talk to Michael about it. Went through everything else and could not find anything I liked, and it's worked out since then. Like,
Hmm.
it's a cool, upbeat intro to start a lame internet, podcast about entertainment. But I want to thank you because you've added a lot of allowing me to use that song has allowed me to have a more professional feel, I guess. So it's kind of
That's
cool.
cool. Aw, that's really great. I love that a lot.
Yeah.
I'm really happy.
Yeah, and it's always a big thing where I there's like always 5 or 6 links to all the Empty Bed stuff. The
Hmm.
intro, the outro, down in the description. So I always make sure that hopefully somebody has discovered your music through this. I don't know, but
Hmm. I should also like put it on the Bandcamp page for like to have your thingy on there. That would be cool.
yeah,
I I didn't know that it was that like when you asked me about that, I was like, wow, that's cool.
it's one of those really cool things, and I again I'm a huge fan of your work, so uh, just everything you're doing right now is like really cool, and I think that you're gonna be the next friend that I'm gonna be like, oh wow, there's that guy who's on tour across the country. I know him. So
That would be great. That would be so great.
I really think that's the next step. So I just again thank you for letting me use your music because I
Yeah,
mean
you're welcome.
that's cool, and thanks for co-hosting on such short notice because I've had 3 people fall out, and then I was like, oh, Michael said he'd go and do this with me if I asked him sometime, and I was expecting a no. I was expecting a flat out no for you coming to.
Wow, Rip.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah, I wasn't entirely sure. I don't like saying no to things because like I don't really plan my time out well. So pretty much it was either going to be me dragging it out as long as possible, like I think I can do this, and then but it actually worked out for the most part. So
yeah. It also works out that I think we're both like insomniacs.
yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Like,
I only slept for like 3 hours today, and then I helped my friend move until literally about 2 hours ago.
oh, dude, like, I went to bed at 4 o'clock last night. I woke up at 9. Went
Literally same.
and then I went straight to Reno because I live out in Silver Springs. For people
Yeah.
unaware, that's an hour drive right there to go
Hmm.
to go buy a 2017 Mitsubishi Mirage.
Ooh, that's
Yeah,
fancy.
yeah. I got a crappy Econobox car, but that's okay. I wanted something newer to get around, and
Yeah, that's like newer than any car I've even touched before.
well, yeah, I just wanted something new. I've never owned anything new in my life, so
Relatable as fuck.
so that was a cool thing to do today. But yeah. So this worked out great. The fact that you were able to make time and
Yeah.
uh, yeah. So I guess we should get on to our stories that we're going to be talking about today. And today I'm going to be kind of editorializing instead of just doing regular stories
Okay.
because there's something that's been going on that I just want to talk about, and you seem like somebody who's more political, like not in like oh hardcore politics way, but like more open to talking about stuff than Tim. Tim's very much like I love the guy, but like, and what I want to talk about is kind of more of the stuff that's kind of happened where people's careers are getting ruined over jokes and stuff, and the devaluation of kind of the Me Too
Like the
movement.
James Gunn thing.
Yes, or Dan Harmon.
What happened to Dan Harmon?
Dan Harmon made a so Channel 101 was a was a YouTube channel service whatever collaboration thing that he did with a bunch of people back in the mid 2000s. Like I'm talking
Whoa.
early YouTube, and
Wow.
it's where pretty much Doc and Marty, which was like the precursor to Rick and Morty, that's where that came from.
Yeah.
And there was the Bill Cosby thing that they did. That was the other big thing they did. But there were a bunch of other non-animated stuff they did, like a terrible sketch called Daryl.
Hmm.
So the premise behind Daryl is it's Dexter, except Daryl is a therapist who prescribes his patients sleeping pills so he can rape their babies.
That's terrible. Oh my God.
That it's not even funny, like, but it was something that was done in 2005, like 2006, like back, when that was the kind of shock humor that everybody was going towards.
Yeah, yeah. Like there's definitely a lot of stuff that was like that in that time period.
Like
Oof.
I think about that stuff all the time, about stuff that is totally not appropriate now. Like,
Yeah, it's like it's crazy because like directly before this big boom of like I guess like political correctness or whatever, like there was some really bad times. Like the fact like all those James Gunn posts that happened, like that wasn't weird in that time period. Like even going up until like 2012, there was so much that was like probably the peak of like people thinking saying the N-word all the time was like super okay and stuff. And then like all those people that I know that used to say it like all the time just like casually or whatever, they're like, "Yeah, man, that's really messed up." And I was like, "What? This has been like 6 years and you used to be incredibly different and now it's like a huge thing." And like I'm sort of glad because it makes people a little bit more like aware of other people and like thinking about other people a little bit more. But like, I don't really agree with the thing that happened to James Gunn.
no, not at
Uh,
all.
yeah, it made me like my friend Jackson. He literally like he was incredibly mad that that happened to him because the year that he made those posts, he made a movie that literally had like a character that was raped and stuff, and it was like really hardcore, and it was like a funny movie, but like it was like aggressive at the same time, and it was like if you think about the kind of art that he made in that time period and those kinds of jokes that he made along with that art, like that's not like it shouldn't be surprising, one. And then two, it was like I don't think that I think he's definitely grown from that time period. Most people have. There's barely anyone that was like perfect, especially in 2012 or in 2008, whatever, any of those years.
Well, think about, like, there's so much stuff that got around at that time that were like, I look at it now and there's tons of movies where I'm like, that movie couldn't be made now, and that was only a few years ago. Like Tropic Thunder, you couldn't.
Literally, Tropic Thunder comes up so much, and I'm like, he literally did like an entire blackface thing. That's not
Robert,
okay.
that's not okay. Could you imagine if that movie came out now? The amount of, like, it would be terrible. It wouldn't be able to
That
be
movie
released.
would not go to theaters. That's pretty much what happened to Isle of Dogs. People were boycotting or like protesting about Isle of Dogs because they're like it's cultural appropriation, even though it isn't because it's partially written by Japanese people. Okay, but like oh my god, like Trop if that happened to such a I mean like a smaller movie like an artsy film by Wes Anderson, a stop motion film specifically, like Tropic Thunder would have never gone to theaters at all. They would have lost so much money from that.
Well, I was thinking about that, and then another one that came up to my mind was Clerks 2, because there's that scene where Randall, the porch monkey conversation. Excuse my language to everybody,
Oof.
but I have
Yeah,
that's the only way I can put it into context. They use that term like
I remember that scene.
6 or
Yeah.
7 times, and even have that written on the back of his shirt. PM for life.
Yeah.
Like that wouldn't fly. And I get the humor comes from the fact that Randall is an ignorant person, and
Yeah.
that joke works. But even though the fact that that joke works and would be fine was fine then, it just, I don't know.
Yeah.
We're too politically correct. For better or for worse, that movie would not fly now.
Yeah. And it's like I don't know. The only problem that like this also comes up a lot is like in the 80s and the 90s, especially with punk music, like specifically with Dead Kennedys, I would say, like almost every song they made is ironic and like they just say crazy shit and like if you don't know they're being ironic, like if you just take it straight, you're like, "Wow, that's really fucked up. That's really like that's some really bad shit to say." But you're like that's the point, like it's ironic, it's trying to say something about society but not like in a direct way talking about it negatively. It's talking about it in like a I'm making fun of this kind of way, which is not really a thing that works now at all.
As
Like this,
no effects could attribute.
yeah, and lots of people don't get it. And I've noticed this with Empty Beds because we're a very ironic band. Like we do a lot of stuff ironically, not even like we don't write stuff in like fucked up ways or whatever, but like the whole thing about Empty Beds for the longest time was being anti-hardcore. So we would just do all the shit hardcore bands do, but ironically, like in the middle of like right before songs, we would be like, "Wake the fuck up, Reno!" We would say silly ass shit like that, and we would be like, "We don't want anyone leaving this room unless it's in a body bag." But we're a fucking emo band, and we'd go into like lay or something. Which is the silliest shit ever, but no one gets it. I think they take it too seriously. And like one of the things I really want to do because of like like modern like sort of gang looking stuff that hardcore bands do like Vane,
Yeah.
everyone who like likes Vane and goes to their shows wears Vane windbreakers, and I want to make Empty Beds windbreakers so bad just so everyone looks like they're in a gang. It would be the funniest shit ever.
It's oh man, it's a weird climate we're in because a second ago I brought up the no effects thing, and that's another
Mm-hmm.
one that a lot of people might not. Well, it was everywhere. It was on Fader. It was
Oh yeah, the no effect.
yeah.
Yeah,
So they yearly no effects does punk rock bowling,
yeah,
and now it's become gone from being just a little festival in Las Vegas that they do once a year to being an entire summer tour. So you get a bunch of punk bands together to go
from
do.
Fat Wreck Records or whatever.
Yeah, Fat Wreck and Alternative Tentacles has a couple of bands out, and
Mm-hmm.
generally after the shows you get to bowl with the punk bands and you get to talk with them and they do Q&As and stuff. It's really cool. It's a really cool
Yeah,
experience. It's something I've never got to go to, but
yeah.
this year's festival back in I think the end of May at the kickoff of like the whole tour and everything. Uh, No Effects made jokes regarding the Las Vegas shooting and
Yeah, that was not a good time.
like and it's like people don't get that they're no effects. Like they're going to do that. Like, but it's
Yeah,
also it once the
it's super
outrage
insensitive.
once the outrage started, like they could have immediately fixed it by at least going out by their encore and just apologizing or but uh yeah, it's gotten to the point where now they can't get booked in the U.S. anymore, and
Wow.
yeah, no, they got their entire tour canceled.
Wow.
For one joke they made one night, and whether or not you think it's okay that they made that joke, which I don't
Hmm.
think it was.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it was, but they are no effects. That's what they do. They're provocateurs, but you can't do that anymore.
Yeah. And then they like no effects is sort of like in that weird thing where like if they went back on it, everyone who like super likes no effects would be like, you're posers now. And because like people who super like no effects are exactly the kind of people who would be like, yeah, those country people deserve to die. Punk is the only thing that matters. And
That
it like and I'm like, God, I hate that so much. But whatever. NoFX is supposed to be like a progressive band that does like really cool stuff that like politically, and they were sort of like insensitive cunts about that one thing. And it's such a NoFX thing to do, but like I also didn't like really expect that because I expect them to be a little bit like there's certain things you can make fun of right now that's really easy for them, specifically with the kind of things that they make fun of. Like it's really easy for them to like tackle anything else, but not like the death of a bunch of people who didn't deserve to die. So, yeah,
yeah,
same.
it's one of those things to where I don't know what they were thinking, and they could have again. I think everything would have been better if they would have not waited 2 days to apologize. And their first statements were like, "I'm sorry you were offended," which is that just you're better off not
That's
apologizing.
yeah, literally. Yeah, wow.
Penn says it best. he's quoted as saying before, if your only apology is going to be to apologize to somebody that,
That you had feelings.
yeah, that's not an apology. You might as well not apologize, and you might as well get back to business because it's
You're
not
not
worth it.
being genuine.
Yeah,
Yeah. You're just making it worse, really.
yeah, you know, it, it's something to where this atmosphere we're in, where everybody's so offended and things are so rough. As anybody who creates anything, you're watching your toes constantly because you're like, am I gonna cross this line here?
Yeah. And I mean, like, it's sort of like important to do that, but it's important to know when, if you're crossing a line, if you're doing it in the right taste or with the right intentions. So, like, because I don't believe in the limiting of art and the things that we can put out or make or whatever, but like, I do think that it must be like either tasteful in a sense, but like, you can go as extreme as you want, I guess. But like, it mostly matters what the intention is and how you go about it. Uh, the weirdest way to like explain that is I saw a Serbian film with all my friends, and
Oh, dude.
I'm into like hardcore movies and like gore and stuff like that, but like, oof, wow, like, and that's movie is supposed to be like a metaphor for like the Serbian government and how it treats its people and stuff like that. And like the whole movie, like I had that in mind. I'm like, yeah, yeah, I mean, I guess. But this is really like a lot. Like I can't handle a lot of this. And it was it was a lot. And like I never would have believed them if it just was that movie and then it ends with like without the last like 5 minute scene where like these giant with these business guys that come in are like, "Yep, just as planned. This is what we want. We want to use the people until they're nothing, pretty much." And I was like, "Okay, I guess this was an actually political film." But I really don't know about it at the same time. And I feel like they could have done it in a lot of better ways, but that was their artistic vision. And I did have a good time. I think I had a time that I enjoyed. I don't know.
I I have a funny story about that movie. I watched that movie on my own. I had to have been 17 at the time. So,
Wow.
yeah, I torrented it because you couldn't
Hmm.
buy it in the US at that point.
Yeah.
And I went and I watched, this terrible movie. And then I was telling one of my friends about it. I was like, it's a messed up movie. I don't really want to talk about it.
Yeah, same.
Like, and my friends kept saying, if it's that bad, like, we want to watch it. And I was like, okay, you guys can watch it. Like, I'll go burn it to a DVD and you guys can go watch it or whatever, but I'm not going to hang around and go watch this movie with you again.
Yeah.
I got told I was
Yeah.
not allowed at that friend's house for like 2 weeks, like, after I
Wow. That's a bad time.
but they watched the entire movie.
Wow. That's their own fault. I
Now,
didn't even like we saw the so my friend got it, like someone bought it for him like on DVD. So he has like an official version of it, but it's not the completely uncensored version. I thank fucking God that it's not the completely uncensored version because I know I couldn't handle it at all if it wasn't.
so in the uncensored version, uh, this was something weird I found out about the making of the film. They used the same animatronics that they used for like in the 90s. There's this weird thing to where instead of getting real real babies for like sitcoms and stuff, they wanted to look
Yeah,
more realistic instead of grabbing a 1-year old. So they got these creepy animatronics that are like,
they use that for that
yes,
scene.
they used that for that scene.
I'm not okay. I'm not okay. Did you see the that one like horror website that was like you can buy the baby now for like $10,000? I
Yeah,
do not want to live in this world.
yeah, it's terrible, and it's one of those things to where I don't think a Serbian film is as bad as some people make it out to be. It is not. ultimately it is an exploitation movie, and it is what it is, but
Yeah.
it's not.
It's an exploitation movie in a different sense. I will say, so like for my whole life, I was like I never wanted to watch Cannibal Holocaust entirely because people are like, this is the craziest fucking movie there is. And I'm like, I don't trust any of your opinions about this because I heavily doubt that it's like the thing. And but we went to fucking Recycled Records. You know what that is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's a local
Okay.
record shop for people who don't
Yeah.
know, but they sell DVDs and stuff. They've moved. They've done. This business is actually one of the most progressive businesses in the entire area. Just for people to know, they when records really dropped off and CDs started dropping off, they got really into like cult DVDs and stuff and hard to
Yeah.
find stuff, and then limited release vinyl. Now that vinyl's big again, they're doing more vinyl, but
Yeah.
they've adapted really well. But yeah, it's a record shop in the area that does
Yeah.
DVDs and stuff too.
They're perfect. My whole life I've went there. Um, but I went there with my friend Jackson, I think Tyler and Carson. But we went there and we were looking in the VHS area, and I like looked and it said Cannibal Holocaust, and I was like, "There's no way." So I like had to look at it for a long time, and it was straight up. They had a VHS version that was like it was like a copied version onto a VHS that someone made and then sold to Recycled Records. And I was like, what the fuck? So we had to buy it. And there was like some other exploitation film that we got that was also copied that was like right next to it. And we were spooked out just by the concept that someone did this. And so we got it and we like, that was a terrible night because I broke Jackson's VHS player, and it was I pretty much turned it into a VHS player that only played Cannibal Holocaust,
That's the
which
only
was
kind
the
of
best.
VHS player anybody needs.
Same. And then we watched it, and I was like, "Wow, that was an artsy film," and I loved it. And it was such a good movie, and I really expected to hate it. And like at the end, when they're like, "Maybe we're the cannibals," I was like, "Whoa!" And I loved the concept and the whole purpose of the film. I think that was a perfectly filmed exploitation film while having like a really good and very strong political purpose. Like it's genius. It should not be as good as it is. I'm mad about it, but it's awesome. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, you can go.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was first introduced to that movie through a YouTuber called the Cinema Snob.
Oh yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know if you're aware of him, but Brad
yeah,
Jones. He makes independent movies and stuff. But
yeah. I like him.
that's how I got introduced into exploitation movies in general, and
Yeah.
I've become like kind of a fan of Christ exploitation movies now, like the Pure Flix movies and stuff,
Hmm.
like in a weird
Oh
roundabout
my
way.
god, he talks about the. They always go to the fucking premieres for that shit.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Jackson really wants us to go to those things, and I just don't want to deal with that shit at all.
the advantage is those theaters are usually really empty. So if you're a fan of watching a movie like in an empty theater, that's the way to do it.
Mhm.
Um,
Wow.
yeah, the cool thing about those kind of movies, in my opinion, is just the fact that like they are so terribly done. Like they are the
They're
worst.
atrocious. And it's like they're like worse than B movies, but somehow they get wide ass releases and it doesn't make sense.
Well, like the way that you do it is you go and get the camera crews from like an ABC Family like sitcom or not sitcom like the 13 and pregnant or whatever they did like the teenage pregnant one.
Yeah, because
You,
it looks like the film quality of a reality TV show.
it does, but it's terrible. And then you go and you get the Andromeda guy. What's his name? The Andromeda guy. He played
Uh,
Hercules. Um, oh, I can't remember his name.
I
But
don't even know.
do you know who I'm talking about?
I don't think so.
Oh, I can't remember his name, but you get that guy, or you get the like J.R. White guy, and they do these terrible movies. It's just they're all the same movie. Like it's kind of fun.
Literally, yeah.
It's like if Kevin Smith's movies like were bad, and then you went and made them all Christian movies. Like it's this revolving cast of like they have their own version of like a Ben Affleck in those movies because it's like
They
I'm
literally it like there's like the main culture where we have like our major actors and stuff, and then there's like really weird, slightly deformed looking versions that are in all the Christian movies with them. Yeah.
It's crazy though, because they reuse these casts, and a bunch of those movies are made for $250,000 in Canada
Wow.
because there's no unions in Canada, so you can like work these people for like your main cast like for $200 a day,
Wow.
and then you go get your Andromeda guy and be like, hey, I'll give you $500 a day, so you have your name recognition going
Same.
on. Yeah, that. But those are my like dirty secret now that I genuinely enjoy those movies.
Wow, that's a bad time. Ugh,
Oh, like
classic.
like I have so much fun. I don't think I'm supposed to be taking them as comedies, but that's just how it's working out.
That's great. That's
Oh.
wonderful.
And on the subject of what we were talking about earlier with outrage culture, a YouTuber that goes by the name PewDiePie, which I'm sure anybody who's watching this knows who PewDiePie is, like grandmas know who
Yeah.
PewDiePie is.
Yeah, straight up.
Got in trouble earlier this week for posting a meme about Demi Lovato's overdose.
Yeah.
It was one of those mom, can I have some money to go buy whatever, like a cheeseburger or whatever, and then it's like, oh, I'm spending it on heroin.
Oof. Wow.
Like
I actually hadn't even seen it. I just saw everyone's reactions to it. So, yeah.
like but PewDiePie gets away with it because it's what he does. Like
Yeah.
I wish I was as Teflon as Felix is because you could get away with anything. Like I like to say he's the Donald Trump of YouTube because it's like Donald Trump was quoted as saying like he could shoot somebody in on whatever street in New York and no nothing would happen to him. Like that's PewDiePie. PewDiePie could like serial kill like 6 people and like I'd be like, oh, I still like him though.
And everyone would be like, "Bro fist. Jesus
Brofist,
Christ,
army of
kill me, God."
9-year-olds. Like I love his content. Like now, like I wasn't a fan of Screechy like Let's Play PewDiePie,
Yeah.
but like his content now is like it's very aware and fun. He
Yeah.
he
It's a lot more genuine now to me.
he
I
became
haven't like paid attention to it too much because I don't like use YouTube an extreme amount. But from the things I saw of him, I'm like, he seems like he's being more of himself now, and that's good.
well, he's kind of become the Anthony Fantano of like
Like
memes.
video games and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, of memes and video games, and it's cool. It's fun. Uh, yeah, I genuinely disliked PewDiePie like for years until his new
same.
like genuinely it was like this guy not my not my target audience, and then his target audience changed. Like it's very, I don't know. There's guys like him that just do offensive stuff and then it gets put up everywhere. But what always shocks me is there's guys like iDubbbz TV, like
Mm,
that
yeah,
guy who is just like he's a provocateur. I think he's the last guy that really can get away with doing that, like legitimately, like. But
because the literal only people who are aware of it are the people who pay attention to him. So like, it doesn't really get beyond that. But PewDiePie has like a lot more of a, I guess, general reach because he's sort of generally famous, I guess. But yeah,
yeah, it's one of those things though too with iDubbbz to where he's upfront about what he does. So it's like he goes and says the N word and he's like, I'm saying this because of the fact that I'm not allowed to.
yeah, literally,
So
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Meanwhile,
I've seen quite a few things from him. I'm like, wow, I don't like him, but why is he like this? I just generally like avoid edgy things like that. But a lot of like the younger children in my family, they've at like one point thought one thing that someone did was funny and then I have to be like near it. So that's like the whole reason I even was ever aware of PewDiePie is because like my cousins would like take control of the TV and put him on the Chromecast all the time, and I wanted to die because they just put it through like the surround sound and it's just him screaming, and I want to die all the time.
oh man, just heavy, just old PewDiePie was terrible. I don't get how he became the most popular YouTuber that way.
Yeah, I really don't either. I I really don't know.
But
It's just 10-year-olds thinking that he's funny because that was 10-year-old comedy at that time period.
y-
So,
yeah, but I think now that he's grown as an artist and he's independent, he's doing all this stuff on his own. I think it's fun. Like,
yeah.
and he's one of the few people that's tackling meme culture in like, I don't know, the way that he does it. I don't know how to describe it, but it's just
Mhm.
I dig it.
Yeah. I think he's an actually nice and good person and can make things that are quality and not terrible. I do think he has a little bit of problems because of the culture he's been a part of and stuff like that for like so long, like when he said the N-word while playing that game that one time. And I was like, oof, wow, rip. But I was like, I don't think that like made him a bad person. I just think that was like a part of the like he's older than me probably by a lot. So that was like a thing he was used to for a long
I think
time
he's
where like that
20.
was like a
I think he's 27, so he's not that much older than us. Like,
he's 6 years older than me.
yeah, he's 4 years older than me. Wow. But
Yeah,
still,
weird.
it's when you're around. I get where that comes from though, because the fact that like if you're involved with video games and stuff and your chat,
Yeah.
it's very like,
Yeah.
those
It's a
words.
lot of people who don't care about those kinds of things because they don't have a reason to. And like it was just a weird culture time period, especially like with online gaming when that became super popular and stuff. It was just a whole weird mix of cultures and people interacting without seeing each other and only interacting with them throughout like video game things where it's mostly like violent things, I would say, like with Halo or whatever. So it was like, I don't know, it was just the different things that people do, but you sort of attach onto all of it because it's just one massive culture. And it got bad for a while, but I think it's probably fine now. I don't know. I don't play online.
Like I do sometimes, and it's still bad.
Oof, rip.
Like
But it's probably like mostly 10-year-olds or whatever.
I've made a hardcore effort in my life now to try not to say things that are bad, and
Yeah,
even when I catch myself on the podcast or I'll say something, I don't edit it out. I call myself on it like immediately because I'm
yeah,
just like, I know I shouldn't say that,
yeah. That's
and
good.
I feel like if I just cut that out, it wouldn't be a learning moment. So it's like,
Yeah,
I think in the
yeah,
first episode I used gay as a pejorative, and I was like, that's not okay. And
yeah.
I kept that cut in because I was like, that's not okay for me to use that way.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's good for people because, like, I don't know anyone who was like not doing these things at some point.
Yeah.
So, like, some people like have slip ups or whatever, and it's like, I understand that it's like a thing everyone works past and like gets through. And it's like, I know that's wrong now. So, like, I'm not proud of myself or happy when I do that. So, I'm just glad people are a little bit more like they just want to be good people. Yeah.
Like, I think that it's one of those things where it's like, again, I disagree with the level of outrage culture with everything, but at the same time though, like we should try not to purposefully offend people. I think
Yeah. I think that's just pointless. Yeah. I hella feel that.
I'm not easily offended, so it doesn't bother me. But it is one of those things where I'm just like, you make yourself sound more ignorant when you say, when people say certain things, and it's just like, let people live their life.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
not.
stop trying to hurt people just because you feel like it. Yeah. Same.
Well, I'm a bartender, so like I have to deal with the fact that I get the I get this like thing where like they see me and they're like the it always ends bad when somebody's at the bar and they go and look. Like the second you see that look, somebody's gonna say something messed up to you.
Oof.
Like you're
Wow.
immediately like, "Hey, fellow white person, you want to hear how I feel about these people?"
Oh God.
And then like you're at work, so you can't flip out about this.
Mhm.
And you're just sitting there like, "Oh,
Yeah, wow. That sounds terrible. Oh my
Like,
gosh.
it happened to my manager one time, and this guy was talking about Mexicans, but he wasn't using that word. And
Hmm.
my
Yeah.
manager's Mexican, like he's half Mexican.
Oof.
The guy didn't realize this apparently. Like, he's even pretty dark skinned, so I don't get how he didn't realize this. And
Yeah.
he was like, those people word, which I'm not going to repeat, like me.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh
Oof.
shit.
I would be, oh my God. If I was standing there, I'd be like, oh, I'm walking away now.
And the guy was like, oh no, I'm not talking about you. And then he was like, well, who are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like,
Wow. That's super intense.
and that's always one of my least favorite things, because the second that somebody starts looking around, like,
Yeah.
you're gonna run into that conversation. It's one of the hardest things about being a bartender, because you can't you can't just be like, dude, that's not cool. You just kind of got to be like, oh, and walk
Yeah.
away. Like, that's
Yeah. That happened to me a lot when I was working at Einstein's, the bagel place, because it's like 99% old white people. And so every single time, like there would be an old white guy that comes up to me and then he'd make a comment about every girl I worked with, and it literally made me so uncomfortable. And I was like, okay,
see,
here's your change.
that's one I don't put up with. Like, if they're directly talking about a coworker, but again, I'm a bartender in a casino, so like I have a little more
Yeah,
freedom to do this kind of stuff. Where I'll just be like, dude, you need to stop, or you can get the hell out of my bar. Like,
yeah. It's really bad. And I've had to tell multiple managers like throughout many jobs I've had about people like sexually harassing people, especially like people I work with. And like nothing ever gets done about it.
it's yeah, it's bad. I've been grabbed before.
Wow.
I've been grabbed, like straight up, like I was there was a lady who was a little bit intoxicated, and I told her, you can't have any more to drink, whatever. And I straight up got grabbed one night. Like, she was like holding on to me and like onto my arm, and I was like immediately like I had to rip that away. And I'm like, dude, you can't do that. Don't touch me. Like, that's
Yeah,
immediately the
wow.
line right there. And
Hmm.
it's yeah, it's something that it's weird being on that end of sexual harassment, because I'm a guy. Like, I'm a cishet guy. Like, we don't you don't get
Yeah.
that much of it, in that situation. Occasionally, I've had, inappropriate comments made to me, uh, by guys before, but,
Yeah.
it just comes along with it. People get a little drunk, they get a little bit, but it's the first time where I
Yeah.
had a woman, like, just straight up, like, full on, like, to the point where, like, it made me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's really stressful. I do think that it's like a rational fear for anyone to have for those kinds of situations because like unwanted things are unwanted things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people shouldn't do things to people that people don't want them to do.
Yeah, same.
Like, and that's a big thing. Yeah. Well, I think we've had a pretty good talk. I think we're about around time for the recording to end, but what projects are you working on right now? Like, what is coming out soon?
Oh, wow. It's already been that much time.
It's
Oh
been a
my
bit of
God.
time. Yeah, we've had some.
Wow. I
Yeah,
want to do this again. I just wanted to keep going.
yeah. It's like therapy. Like,
Yeah, it's a good time. I was
uh,
having a good
yeah.
time.
It's one of those things to where, like, like this whole week I've kind of felt like the Simon and Garfunkel song, "The Only Living Boy at New York," which is one of my favorite Simon and Garfunkel songs. Like, anybody asked me about this, like, it's essentially about, like, missing your best friend. That's all the song is about.
Aw, that's cute.
Like, it's Paul Simon. Pretty much the entire song is, Art Garfunkel was off in Europe shooting a movie, and they needed to get Bridge Over Troubled Water finished, and he was having writer's block, and he was depressed, and he'd just gone through a breakup,
Oh,
and
dang.
and he just wanted his friend back in New York with him to go finish up this record.
Aw,
And
that's so cute. I didn't know. Oh, that's so
like,
cute.
re-listen to that song sometime, because there's a line in there, Tom, catch your plane right on time.
Hmm.
And that's referencing the fact that they were in a band called Tom and Jerry, which was like their
Oh,
original performing name,
okay.
and Tom was Art Garfunkel.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah, that's
weird.
some deep. I'm a
That's
Simon and Garfunkel nerd, so like,
wow. Yeah, well, I mean, as a folk punk person, I mean, you have to have part of the folk part in there.
Yeah, like, but another line in that song I really like is, I get the news I need from the weather report because it's pretty much like, making sure his flight isn't delayed. Like, I was like, that's a cool song, but, that's how this week's been for me because I'm like, who am I going to be hosting the podcast with? I need, Tim back. I need my, Art Garfunkel back.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's been cool actually having you on because the fact that, I was worried I was going to have to do this alone.
Yeah, that would be weird. I don't even know how that would work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was a real fun way to do this too because, it's fun when you get somebody who maybe isn't normal with the content because we did a different episode than I think I've ever done, but it's something that's been going on for the
Hmm.
outrage culture stuff that is
Yeah.
everywhere. It's been fun to talk it out a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
anyway, projects. Where can people find your
Oh yeah.
projects? What's coming up?
Well, okay. So I've been trying to take a break from shows because I booked way too many and played way too many, and I got super messed up on like time and organization and stuff like that, which sort of just happens to me in general. But so like we were like, okay, we're not gonna do shows for any of these bands for a while, hopefully, unless like some really cool show happens or whatever. So the whole next month is supposed to be for recording for literally every band. So there's supposed to be the second Empty Beds album, which has been supposed to come out for like 2 years. So hopefully that will actually happen. That it's gonna be awesome. And then there's also some Empty Beds extras that I want to do with like people who were in the band but aren't in the band anymore, and like do releases that are like, this is that person's like, we want to have a catalog of this person's efforts with us. So we're gonna make like EPs that are specific for people that who were in it but aren't in it anymore, that we're actually still friends with. And then gonna do a bunch of Skipper the Eye Child stuff because we still haven't released anything yet. We're probably gonna put out like two EPs, and then my screamo band No Capitals No Spaces. We're supposed to put out our actual like EP thing, and then my drummer for Cruel keeps begging me to do something, so probably something for that too. Yeah, so probably a lot, mostly next month. Hopefully any of it happens. I really hope it does because we've been pushing, especially the Empty Beds second album. We've been pushing that for fucking forever, straight up. And it's like this is a completely rewritten version. Like we had a whole album that was like 15 songs, and it was like specifically like following this like
Yeah.
narrative and stuff, and it was awesome. And and then like a whole bunch of stuff happened, and so now we're not doing any of those songs at all. So we rewrote an entire new album. That's probably less songs. I think it's like 9 or 10 maybe. That might be too many as well. I don't remember. And it's a lot darker and a lot heavier, but also, oh, I don't know. There's lots of black metal and lots of post punk and lots of I don't know. And our guitarist Carson, he does some vocals on it that are sort of like Jim Morrison. So that's interesting. It's gonna be all over the place, and it has synth now. I love synth. Okay, but yeah,
Yeah, we'll
that's the main thing.
maybe when the next Empty Beds record comes out, I'll have you back on and definitely be that'd be a cool reason to bring you back on. Any reason be cool to have you on, dude.
Yeah,
It's been killer talking to you, man. Like you're an interesting guy and you have a lot to say. So,
yeah, I talk way too much.
well, then it's in the name of the podcast,
Yeah, it
right there.
is.
Talk
Yes,
it
it
to
is.
me. There we go.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. Right now, guys, out there, I'm working on my drunken Let's Play series where I turn video games into drunk Let's Plays, like drinking games. Like I don't know. I did Fallout.
Wow.
I did Fallout New Vegas.
I think I saw you post about that.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm working on. I'm working on a couple of other like video game related stuff. I have
Hmm.
other things planned. Uh, yeah. Links to everything will be in the description of the podcasts and everything, and I'll go get some links from Michael later too to just so you guys can get everything out of here. Um, yeah, it's been a real fun night. So I just want to say out to everybody out there, we'll talk it to you next time.
Nice.
And that's the way you end a podcast.